The arrival music of the scattered fleet. The Krell arrived. The Krell collective had traveled across 12-star systems without meeting any real opposition. Their fleet consisted of 40 massive warships, each one carrying enough firepower to level continents. High Commander Vorin stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen, his forearms crossed behind his back in a gesture of supreme confidence. The Krell were conquerors by nature. Their civilization had existed for 15,000 years, and during that time, they had absorbed over 200 species into their empire. Some joined willingly. After seeing the Krell's power, others fought and lost. None had ever driven the Krell away. Earth appeared peaceful. From orbit, Vorin's sensors detected billions of inhabitants scattered across 7 continents. Their technology seemed basic. Simple satellites orbited the planet. Radio waves carried primitive communications. The dominant species called themselves humans, and they had barely begun exploring their own solar system. This will be simple, Vorin told his second officer, a younger Krell named Thax. Their defenses are minimal. Their weapons are crude. We will have this world claimed within 3 cycles. Thax nodded in agreement. The sensor data confirmed everything. Human spacecraft were slow and limited. Their largest weapons were chemical, explosives, and basic nuclear devices. Nothing that could threaten Krell shielding technology. Nothing that could stand against plasma cannons and molecular disruptors. The demand. Vorin activated the communication system and broadcast a message to Earth. The translation matrix converted his words into all major human languages. Simultaneously, the message was direct and allowed no room for negotiation. Inhabitants of this world, you are now subjects of the Krell Collective. Your planet contains resources we require. Your species will serve our empire. Surrender immediately and accept integration. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities and the enslavement of your population. You have 1 rotation of your planet to comply. The command center fell silent as they waited for the response. Every species responded the same way initially. First came confusion, then fear, then desperate attempts to negotiate. The cycle was always predictable. Weaker civilizations always recognized strength when confronted with it, but the human response was different from anything Vorin had encountered before. Multiple transmissions came back within minutes. Some were from individual governments, others from military organizations, and several from what appeared to be civilian groups. The messages varied in tone, but none of them contained surrender offers. One transmission simply said no. Another asked who gave you the right to make demands. Third stated you should leave while you still can. Dax looked confused. Commander, they do not understand their situation. Should we demonstrate our power? Vorin felt a flicker of annoyance. These humans were behaving irrationally. Perhaps they needed to witness Krell capabilities before they grasped reality. He selected an uninhabited island in their Pacific Ocean and ordered a precision strike. The demonstration, one of the warships, broke formation and positioned itself over the target coordinates. The main cannon charged for 3 seconds, then released a concentrated beam of energy. The island vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. A massive column of steam rose where solid ground had existed moments before the explosion, was visible from space and registered on every seismic sensor on the planet. Now, they understand, Voron said with satisfaction, prepare to receive their surrender. But again, the human response defied expectations. Instead of capitulation, the planet went quiet. All communication ceased. The major population centers appeared to be organizing rather than panicking. Military installations worldwide began coordinating with each other in ways that Krell sensors had never detected before. Then something unexpected happened. Launch signatures appeared across the planet, hundreds of them. Primitive rockets rose from silos and mobile platforms arcing toward the Krell fleet in the upper atmosphere. Voron almost laughed. Their desperation makes them foolish. These weapons cannot penetrate our shields, destroy them all. The defensive systems activated. Automatically, energy grids formed around each warship. The human missiles struck these barriers and exploded harmlessly, their chemical warheads and nuclear payloads absorbed by technology thousands of years more advanced. Not a single Krell vessel took damage. See, Voron said to Thax, they throw everything they have at us and we remain untouched. Now they will truly understand their position. The first landing, Voron ordered ground forces to deploy. 20,000 Krell soldiers boarded transport craft and descended through Earth's atmosphere. They would establish control points in major cities and force the humans to recognize their new reality. The Krell had done this hundreds of times before. The pattern never changed. The first transports landed in a region humans called North America. The soldiers emerged wearing full combat armor and carrying weapons designed to suppress any resistance. They expected to face frightened primitives with outdated guns. Instead, they found empty streets. The cities appeared abandoned. Buildings stood intact, but no humans were visible anywhere. The Krell forces spread out, searching for population centers to control. Their sensors detected life signs, but the humans seemed to be hiding underground or in reinforced structures. Then the ground beneath the first squad exploded. The humans had buried explosives throughout the landing zone. Shaped charges detonated in sequences, channeling force upward through Krell armor. Soldiers who had never been wounded in combat fell dead before they understood what was happening. More explosions followed. Buildings that seemed empty suddenly revealed weapons positions. Projectiles struck from multiple angles. The Krell shields worked against energy weapons, but the humans were using kinetic force. Bullets, shells, and rockets propelled by chemical reactions. The shields flickered and failed under sustained impacts. A Krell platoon leader called for air support, but before reinforcements could arrive, small flying machines appeared. The humans called them drones. They were cheap, simple, and carried explosives or cameras. They swarmed the Krell, positioned like insects, too numerous to target effectively, too fast to track. Within 2 hours, the first landing force had lost 30% of its soldiers. Within 4 hours, they were forced to retreat to their transports under covering fire from orbital ships they left behind. Equipment, wounded soldiers, and something the Krell had never left. Before doubt, the pattern repeats. Voron watched the reports with growing disbelief. He deployed forces to different continents, expecting better results in varied terrain. Everywhere The outcome was the same, in dense jungles Krell soldiers walked into. Ambushes set by humans who knew every tree and trail in frozen tundra supply. Lines were cut and patrols disappeared. In mountain ranges, valleys became killing zones where escape was impossible. In deserts the heat worked against Krell biology while humans attacked from distances their sensors couldn't detect. The humans never fought. In open battle, they never presented clear targets. They struck and vanished. They used the terrain. They destroyed supplies. They captured weapons and studied them. Most disturbing of all, they learned the price of underestimation, adaptation, high. Commander Voran had lost 6,000 soldiers. In the first week, the number was unprecedented. The Krell Collective had conquered civilizations with armies 10 times larger than Earth's, and those campaigns had cost fewer lives. Something was fundamentally wrong with this invasion. Thax brought disturbing news to the command center. Commander, the humans have reverse-engineered our energy shields. They created a functioning prototype in 4 days. Voran's forearms tensed. That is impossible. Our technology took centuries to develop. These primitives barely understand space travel. The evidence is clear, insisted. They captured intact equipment from our landing forces. Their scientists work together across all their nations. They shared information instantly through their global communication networks. They have manufacturing facilities on every continent. What took us centuries, they accomplished through cooperation and desperation. Voran stared at the planet below. He had studied the intelligence reports before arrival. Humans fought constantly among themselves. They had dozens of nations that competed for resources. They maintained separate militaries and rarely coordinated. Their division should have made them weak. Instead, the Krell invasion had united them. Old enemies were sharing weapons technology. Rival nations were coordinating attacks. The entire species had transformed into a single fighting force overnight. Voran had given them a common enemy, and they had responded by becoming something the Krell had never encountered before. Unified human civilization focused entirely on survival. The trap. Voran decided to change tactics. If ground forces couldn't control the planet, he would use orbital bombardment to break their resistance. The Krell fleet would target military installations and major cities until the humans had no choice but to surrender. He selected coordinates and ordered the fleet to bombardment positions. 40 warships aligned themselves above population centers. Their main cannons began charging with enough energy to crack tectonic plates. The plan was ruthless but effective. Faced with total annihilation, every species eventually chose survival over pride. The targeting systems locked onto a city the humans called Tokyo. 20 million inhabitants lived there. Its destruction would demonstrate that continued resistance was futile. Voran gave the order to fire. The cannon discharged. A beam of concentrated plasma shot toward the planet's surface. It should have carved through the atmosphere and vaporized everything within 50 kilometers of the impact point. Instead, something struck Voran's flagship from behind. The entire vessel shuddered violently. Emergency alarm screamed. Officers were thrown from their stations. The bombardment beam went wide, missing Tokyo completely and striking empty ocean instead. Voran grabbed a support rail to steady himself. As the ship systems fought to compensate for the damage, report he roared. Thax was staring at the tactical display with an expression Vorin had never seen on a Krello face before. It looked like fear. Commander, we have multiple contacts, human vessels. They are attacking the fleet. The human fleet. Vorin looked at the screen and couldn't believe what he saw. Ships were rising from Earth's surface and emerging from behind the moon. They were crude vessels, obviously built in haste, with mismatched components and improvised weapon systems, but they had functional shields and plasma cannons. The humans had taken Krello technology and combined it with their own engineering and ways. That shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. There were 35 human ships. They were outnumbered and outgunned by every logical calculation. The Krell fleet should have destroyed them in minutes. But the humans didn't fight logically. They scattered in all directions, using their smaller size to maneuver in ways Krello capital ships couldn't match. They didn't engage in direct combat. Instead, they struck quickly and retreated behind planetary bodies. They used Earth's moon as cover, firing from concealment and then repositioning before return fire could track them. More importantly, they weren't alone. From Earth's surface, thousands of missiles launched simultaneously. These weren't the primitive nuclear weapons. From the first day, the humans had loaded them with captured Krell explosives and modified their guidance systems using stolen technology. The Krell shields designed to stop energy weapons struggled against the kinetic force of so many impacts. The first warship lost its shields after absorbing 70 hits. Its hull began to fracture. Human ships immediately focused their fire on that vessel, pouring plasma into the weak points. The warship broke apart, scattering debris across orbit. 1,600 Krello died in seconds. Vorin ordered the fleet to regroup and focus fire, but the humans adapted faster than he could respond. They targeted communications arrays, blinding ships from each other. They struck engines, limiting mobility. They seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum disruption. The realization as the battle raged, Vorin finally understood his mistake. He had judged humans by their technology level. He had assumed that a species still confined to one solar system would be primitive in all ways, but technology wasn't the measure of a species' capability. Humans had something far more dangerous than advanced weapons. They had adaptability. Humans had spent their entire evolution surviving on a world that constantly tried to kill them. They had climbed from prey species to apex predators through intelligence and cooperation. They had survived ice ages and plagues and natural disasters that would have destroyed most civilizations. They fought each other constantly, which meant they understood warfare in ways the Krello never had. The Krello conquered through superior technology. They overwhelmed opponents with better weapons and advanced ships. When that advantage disappeared, they had no backup plan. They had forgotten how to fight creatively because they had never needed to. Humans fought with everything they had. When bullets failed, they used explosives. When explosives failed, they built new weapons. When new weapons failed, they captured enemy equipment and turned it against them. They never stopped adapting. They never stopped learning, and most terrifying of all, they never stopped fighting. Withdrawal. Vorin watched as his fleet disintegrated around him, 5 warships. Destroyed, 12 more heavily damaged. The human vessels continued their hit and run tactics while surface-based weapons never stopped firing. His ground forces on the planet were cut off and requesting evacuation, but he couldn't spare the ships to retrieve them. He made the hardest decision of his military career. All vessels retreat to jump distance, abandon ground forces. We are withdrawing. Thax looked at him with shock. Commander, the collective will demand an explanation. We have never retreated from a conquest. The alternative is annihilation, Vorin said. Quietly, these humans will not stop. They cannot be broken because they do not understand the concept of surrender. Every soldier we send down will die. Every ship we commit will be destroyed. This world cannot be conquered. The surviving Krell vessels pulled back, accelerating toward the edge of the system where they could activate their faster-than-light drives. Human ships pursued but broke off at the boundary of their effective range. They had one end. They knew it. As Vorin's flagship prepared to jump, he sent one final transmission to Earth, not a demand this time, a warning to his own people. Do not return to this world. Mark these coordinates as forbidden space. The species here is too dangerous to engage. They are few in number and limited in reach now, but they will grow when they finally leave their planet and venture into the galaxy. Nothing will stop them. We challenge the wrong world. The Krello collective made a mistake. Pray they do not remember us. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind wreckage, abandoned soldiers, and a legend that would spread across the galaxy. Humans had fought the Krello collective and won, not through superior technology, but through determination, creativity, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. On Earth, humans watched the alien fleet disappear and began the long process of rebuilding, but they also began the process of learning. They had captured Krello technology. They had defeated a superior force through ingenuity. They now knew they weren't alone in the universe, and they knew others would come. Next time, humanity would be ready, and the galaxy would learn what humans had always known, that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all.